Place the bolt through the hole of the battery box. And on the bottom side of the base, install the nut, and with the supplied Phillips, tighten the bolts down. The power connector has markings on it identifying that this is the positive side and that this is the negative side. So we will insert the two red wires into the connector for the positive side. And using the supplied screwdriver, the Phillips, we will tighten down the connector and notice one of them got captured and the other one didn't. Having loosened the positive screw back up, reinserting both red leads and inserting both black leads into the negative side and tightening down both screws, check by pulling on each individual wire to see that they are captured under this power connector. Next, we need the bag that has both base plates for the servo and the servo itself, and the control arms for the servo, including the screws. Keeping in mind that in the very next step we are going to mount the ultrasonic sensor, and we need the screws in the bag labeled ultrasonic. So once we've got the protective backing off, my recommendation is to set the parts out, noting that there are two screws that are identical and one that is different in the parts bag with these white plastic pieces, and then in the bag that says for ultrasonic there is 3 larger screws with the associated nuts, 2 smaller screws and their associated nuts, and then 4 small screws with the 4 black nuts that match these small screws. Now, what I have done is I have already gone and placed the motor in the black acrylic housing. Now, for me, this housing is very tight to get this wire through. Be careful not to damage this wire upon installation. Note that the wire goes towards the back with the holes on my left side. And as you install this into the upper base plate, thread the wire through, and then once again carefully install the servo in here, as it is a tight fit to get it in. Once again, trying not to damage the wire. My next recommendation is to take the three bolts that hold this servo base plate on and get them installed first before assembling the top side of the servo bracket. By installing these three nuts and bolts with the Allen heads on top and the nuts on the bottom, you can go ahead and tighten these bolts using the supplied hex driver. Noting that there is an alignment that's needed for the bolts that hold the servo motor on. And these are the nuts and bolts that are Phillips heads, and they will pass through the servo motor, the acrylic plate, and the base plate. And likewise with the second one, through the servo motor, through the spacer black acrylic plate, and through the base plate. By passing the bolt through the hole, leaving the Phillips head effectively countersunk into the body, and placing the nut on the top side. This will allow you to use the provided Phillips screwdriver to tighten down the nut and bolt assembly. Noting how much of the head, noting how much of the shaft of the screw passes. If we were to reverse the installation, the bolt would have protruded into the wires. So that is why my recommendation is that we countersink the head of the bolt in from the base and leave the excess bolt here where it will not damage the wires. The ultrasonic module needs to be attached to the acrylic base. Note that the curved portion of the base goes towards the back, and this module mounts towards the front. Also note that in the bag of hardware, the very small bolts go through the PC board, and the nuts that are supplied are the small black nuts that we will mount on the back side, and we will use the Phillips screwdriver to secure.